What if the greatest threat to your freedom isn't control, but comfort? Imagine waking up in a world where no one really questions anything anymore. Opinions are formed instantly, repeated endlessly, and rarely examined. A world so saturated with noise that thinking itself starts to feel unnecessary. Or, worse, inconvenient. Now ask yourself what happens to a society that stops thinking. Not slowly, not dramatically, but quietly. It drifts. In this environment, reactions replace reasoning. People don't pause, they respond. They don't explore, they align. And over time, something subtle begins to disappear. The ability to truly think for yourself. This isn't because people are less intelligent. It's because they're being trained not to think deeply at all. Look around. Speed is rewarded. Emotional reactions spread faster than thoughtful analysis. Algorithms learn your preferences and feed them back to you, reinforcing what you already believe. Schools often prioritize memorization over curiosity and questioning. That's often treated as disruption. Decades ago, Noam Chomsky described something called manufacturing consent, a system where people accept ideas because they've been conditioned to. When thinking becomes optional, influence becomes effortless. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Thinking is hard. It requires effort. It creates friction. It forces you to sit with uncertainty. In a world designed for convenience, that friction feels like a problem, so most people avoid it. But the deeper issue isn't laziness. It's overload. Every day your mind is flooded with information messages, headlines, opinions, notifications, far more than the human brain was ever designed to process. When overwhelmed, the brain looks for shortcuts. It stops analyzing and starts relying on patterns, habits, and social cues. You've felt this before. You see a post with thousands of likes, and something inside you assumes it must be valid. That's social proof. And it's one of the fastest ways shallow thinking spreads. We're thinking less because the environment rewards it. Another quiet change is happening to one that's even more dangerous. We're losing the ability to focus. Deep reading is fading. Long-form thinking is becoming rare. Instead, we skim, we scroll, we jump between tabs. And while that feels productive, it comes at a cost. You can't think critically if your attention is constantly fractured. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you sat with a single idea long enough to fully understand it? Carl Sagan once warned about a society dependent on science and technology, yet unable to question or understand it. The barrier to critical thinking isn't just external, it's internal. Thinking deeply challenges your identity. It forces you to question beliefs you've grown attached to. And that creates psychological tension, cognitive dissonance. So instead of exploring, most people defend. They retreat into groups that agree with them. They repeat ideas that feel safe. Over time, dialogue turns into performance. Curiosity turns into certainty. And certainty becomes an illusion. Because when people stop questioning, they become easier to influence, not through force, but through suggestion. Look at education systems that reward obedience, workplaces that discourage disagreement, social environments where speaking against the norm carries risk. As adults, the cost of thinking independently often becomes social. You risk being misunderstood, labeled difficult, excluded. Psychologist Erich Fromm suggested many don't want intellectual freedom because it comes with responsibility, and responsibility can feel heavy. If you think for yourself, you can't outsource your beliefs anymore. You can't hide behind the crowd. And then came social media, a system engineered for engagement, not truth. Every scroll invites reaction, not reflection. Marshall McLuhan said, "The medium is the message. How we consume information shapes how we think." Today's medium favors speed over depth and certainty over curiosity. Ideas are judged by popularity, not evidence. Where does that leave you? Ask better questions. What am I being led to believe? Who benefits if I believe it? Intelligence alone isn't enough. You need courage, the courage to be wrong, to rethink, to admit uncertainty. Socrates understood true wisdom begins with recognizing how little you know. Not as weakness, but as a doorway. The strongest thinkers aren't the loudest, they're the ones who observe, reflect, pause, because thinking takes time. Reclaim it, and something changes. You begin to see patterns others miss. You start separating information from manipulation. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman described two systems. one fast and emotional, and one slow, deliberate, and analytical. Repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity feels like truth. Once you believe something, your brain works to protect it. Clarity starts with something simple and rare: silence, the ability to sit with your own thoughts without distraction. Critical thinking isn't just intellectual, it's personal. It requires you to separate who you are from what you believe. In a world full of noise, the ability to think clearly becomes a quiet form of power. The most radical thing you can do today is think not louder, not faster, but deeper. Because once you start, you'll notice something. You were never meant to follow thought. You